Nothing at all. Got it? Okay. Chapter 13, beginning in verse 11. I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. He exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and he makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. He performs signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven to the earth in the presence of men. He deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which is given to him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. And it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause many who do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. And he causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free men and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And he provides that no one will be able to buy or to sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here's wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. You've heard of that before, right? Let's see here. It's not possible for me to discuss this in 1 week. So this is a two-parter. John chapter 10, verse 22. At that time, the feast of the dedication, which is called Hanukkah. Hanukkah means dedication, took place at Jerusalem. And it was winter. And Jesus was walking in the temple in the portico of Solomon. And the Jews gathered around him and were saying to him, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly." If you didn't listen to last week's sermon, I advise that you do. Because last week we showed how the thought of the Jewish nation is that God has taken order out of chaos, but chaos is fighting order. And we talked about the three sea monsters and the four nations that are anti-Christ, anti-God. So from the beginning, Jews understand that there is a spiritual force that is fighting against them. Pharaoh seeks to enslave them. Pharaoh seeks to kill all the males and tells the mothers to expose their children so that there are no males. So Moses' mother hides Moses in the Nile River, and through a series of events, Moses goes into the Pharaoh's household and is raised by Pharaoh's daughter. The Babylonians seek to destroy Israel. They come down and they destroy the temple. They take all the gold out of the temple. They deport half the people into Babylon. They seek to destroy Israel, but Israel survives because they institute, instead of temple worship, they institute the synagogue or the church type pattern of worship. After the Babylonians were done, the Persians took over, and at first Cyrus said that the Jews could go back to their land, but if you read the book of Esther, you see that a king rose in Persia, and they tried to exterminate the Jews in Persia, and that's the story of Esther, if you ever read that book. And they have a new holiday called Purim to commemorate what the great victory that the Jews did, because they were allowed to fight against the Persians and they were allowed to survive. Now we have, last week I talked to you about the four kingdoms, the Babylonians and the Persians, and I mentioned that the third one was the Greek Empire, which followed the Persian Empire. And we saw that, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but we saw that depicted in Daniel as a leopard with four heads and four wings. So, what happened was this. They instituted a new holiday called Hanukkah. Now, Purim and Hanukkah are not prescribed in the book of Moses. These are additional holidays that they added after some time. Kind of like we've added, well, first we thought Memorial Day would be a good thing to add. Used to be we just had Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then they decided, we have to honor the two greatest presidents, and so we have President's Day. And then one year, when I was a kid, we would celebrate Washington's one year and Lincoln's the next year, and then they put them together, and now we just have President's Day. And then we added Memorial Day because we wanted to honor those who fought in the Civil War. And then we decided that we should honor labor, and we added Labor Day. And what else have we added? We decided we should add Martin Luther King Day, Veterans Day. We added that. So, yeah, don't forget Juneteenth. I mean, we just keep adding these holidays. Well, that's what the Jews did too. When things happened, they would add a holiday. So they had the holiday of Purim. They had the holiday of Hanukkah, which they answered. Now, here it shows in John that Jesus participated in this holiday, even though this is not a prescribed holiday from the law. And it's translated the dedication, which is the Hebrew word Hanukkah. What do you know about Hanukkah? Maccabees, what about them? That's absolutely right. The oil lasted for 8 days. And so at Christmas time we say to our Jewish friends, Happy Hanukkah. But that's not the important thing about Hanukkah. Hanukkah is something that Jesus celebrated. Jesus celebrated all of the biblical feasts that were prescribed in Moses, and Jesus also celebrated this additional. You know, there are people that say Christians should not celebrate Christmas because it's not in the Bible. Christians should not celebrate Easter because it's not in the Bible. Christians should celebrate Passover and Pentecost and Tabernacles and Day of Atonement, and then maybe they should celebrate Purim and Hanukkah, but they shouldn't celebrate Christmas and Easter because they're not in the Bible. Well, at the time of Jesus, we can say for sure that Hanukkah was not in the Bible. It was not in their Bible at that time, and it's still not in their Bible. But Jesus celebrated it. And it was something that the people did every single year. And it's interesting you see that this is where they came to Jesus when he was in the temple and said, "Are you the Messiah? Are you announcing yourself as Messiah in the temple on Hanukkah?" And of course he wouldn't answer. He said, "Hey, have you checked out the guy that was blind and now he sees? And have you checked out the lame person who is now walking? And have you checked out the deaf person who's now hearing, or the blind person who's now seeing? Have you checked those things out?" And Jesus refused to answer them in any other way except that. So, have we missed out on something here? Next slide. Matthew chapter 24. We're talking about Antichrist today. Jesus answered and said to them, number one, see to it that no one misleads you. Many will come. There is not one Antichrist. There are many antichrists. There is a spirit of antichrist that comes from the chaos monsters and is seeking to thwart the will of God. And there have been antichrists such as Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar and Antiochus Epiphanes and all of these people that have persecuted Hitler, all these people who have persecuted Jews over the centuries. These are all antichrists. There will be many. But the interesting thing about the particular antichrist that we're talking about in the book of Revelation, he's a little bit different than Hitler, and he's a little bit different than Titus and, the guy that destroyed the temple in the year 70. So Jesus said, many will claim to be me. Don't go into the desert to find him. Don't go. He's not hiding in the closet somewhere. When I come back, you will see me as the east to the west on a cloud. Remember we talked about this? And through scripture after scripture, visible appearing of Jesus that nobody can deny. People can come and they can have false miracles. I was watching a YouTube discussion between Penn Teller, Penn and Teller. Do you know Penn? And he was discussing with somebody, and he said to them, "It's all fake." And he was talking with Bill Maher, and Bill Maher said, he was arguing with Penn, and Penn was saying, all of it is fake. All of them, no matter what it is, just because you can't understand how they do it doesn't mean that it's real. It's fake. And Maher was, look it up. It's on YouTube. It's interesting. There are those who will come and will seek to mislead. Next slide. Many false prophets. Why? Because lawlessness has increased. Most people's love will grow cold. But who is saved? The one who endures to the end is saved. This is what the Bible teaches about it. Those who survive through it and endure to the end, those are the ones who are saved. Now, therefore, next slide. When you see the abomination of desolation, actually the parentheses should start there, at which was spoken through Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place. Let the reader understand. What? The reader in the first century understood what he was saying here. Then let those who are in Judea, they must flee to the mountains, and whoever is on the housetop must not go down to get the things that are in his house. When you see the abomination of desolation, well, the abomination of desolation at that point was a historical fact. It's not something that's future, even though it is future. He's not referring to the future. He's referring to the past. And let me show you. Daniel chapter 11. Forces from him will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress, do away with the regular sacrifice, and they will set up the abomination of desolation. By smooth words, he will turn to godlessness those who act wickedly towards the covenant, but the people who know their God will display strength and take action. Those who have insight among the people will give understanding to the many, yet they will fall by the sword, by the flame, and by captivity, and by plunder for many days. Now, I spoke to you last week, and if you haven't listened to it, I really recommend that you do. Daniel sees this vision where he's in Babylon. He sees Babylon as the first kingdom, and then he sees the Persian kingdom coming, and then he sees the third kingdom coming, which has four heads, and then he goes on to talk about a boastful person that comes from one of the four heads. And I don't have time to talk about that, but you'll have to take my word for it. It is important, and let me show you why. Here's the leopard with 4 heads, according to AI. Apparently it has eagle wings. So let me give you a brief history of the vision of Daniel chapter 7. Next slide. You've heard of Alexander the Great, right? He started out, he was like, he was the son of the Greek king, Philip of Macedon. And he was like 19 years old. How old are you guys? You're 18 and a half. And can you imagine starting to conquer the world at age 19? This guy, he gets his Greek army together, and he goes and he conquers the whole Persian Empire. And he does it before he's 33, about the same age as Jesus when he died on the cross. He went and he conquered, he didn't actually conquer the Italians, the Romans he didn't conquer, but the rest of the Roman Empire he conquered. He died at age 33, and he had 4 generals, and so the 4 generals each took a piece of the world. Ptolemy took Egypt. Seleucus took over and including Iraq and Iran. I have trouble pronouncing this. Lysimachus took Turkey, and Cassander took the more European parts. So each one had their own kingdom. Well, between the Seleucids and the Ptolemy people, Israel was right in between. And they would go right along the Mediterranean Sea because, Gaza is there. It's a beautiful flat spot. And so all trade in the world just about went in between through Israel. And so eventually the descendants from the Seleucids and the Ptolemaic descendants, they're fighting all the time. And so after several generations, this guy raises up. He's Greek. Did you ever read anything about these Greeks in ancient times? They had all kinds of gods. They had no problem with adult men molesting little boys. They had no problem with polygamy or polyandry or anything like that. And if you don't believe it, just look up Pompeii and see what they excavated there. They weren't good. It says in the New Testament, all Cretans are liars, evil beasts, and lazy gluttons. This testimony is true. The Greeks were in bad shape, but eventually the Greek people themselves became Christianized. But at this point in history that we're talking about, it's the Seleucid kings are fighting with the Egyptian kings, and they're going back and forth, and Israel is right in the middle. So this guy comes up. His name is Antiochus IV. Next one. This is from the book of Maccabees. When the Bible was translated from Hebrew into Greek, they translated those middle books that are in the Catholic Bible with it. The middle books includes the book of Maccabees. The Jews had never included those books as scripture, but they were translated from Hebrew or Aramaic into Greek at the same time that the Old Testament was. And this book is in there. It's very similar to the book of 2nd Chronicles in that it gives a historical account of what happened in between what we call the close of the Old Testament and the opening of the New Testament. So it says, he, Antiochus IV, Epiphanies. Okay, some liturgical churches have a holiday called Epiphanies. And what does it mean? It means, in the Christian sense, the fact that God became incarnate in Jesus Christ. I mean, if we say, well, I've had an epiphany, that might mean, in our way of thinking, oh, I came to understand something. But the real meaning of the word originally was God in the flesh. So Jesus is an epiphany. He is God's manifestation in the flesh. Now, this guy Antiochus IV said, that's me. I'm God. This is what Jesus meant when he said, when you see the abomination of desolation. This is what he's referring to. He directed them, that's Jews, to follow customs strange to the land, to forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices, drink offerings in the sanctuary, to profane Sabbaths and feasts, to defile the sanctuary and the priests, to build altars and sacred precincts and shrines for idols, to sacrifice swine and unclean animals, to leave their sons uncircumcised. They were to make themselves abominable by every unclean and profane, so that they should forget the law and change all the ordinances. He came in and he said, Judaism is finished. There will be no more Sabbath. There will be no more sacrifice. There will be none of these things. You can't circumcise your children anymore. And you will be Greeks from now on. This is what Jesus was talking about. Next slide, please. Antiochus IV worshipped Zeus and decreed that his religion should be adopted across the empire. He claimed to be Zeus incarnate, which aligned perfectly with the epithet Epiphanes. So Jesus is saying, don't follow these false people. When I come back, I'll be on the cloud and every eye will see. Don't go to the desert. Don't go to do this. But when you see the abomination of desolation, which is a historical fact, when you see that again, then you will know things are close. Next slide. Now, on the 15th day of Chislev, which is one of their months, which is December for us, in 145th year, that's the year of the Greeks, which is 164 BC, they erected a desolating sacrilege upon the altar for an offering. The books of the law which they found were tore to pieces and burned with fire. The book of the covenant was found. If the book of the covenant was found with anyone, if anyone adhered to the law, the decree of the king condemned them to death. Jesus is talking about an event that happened a couple hundred years ago. 164 BC, 136 years previously. Well, 30 more, because he was in the end. It was something within their cultural understanding. It'd be like talking about the Civil War today. I'd like to go to Gettysburg, or I'd like to go to Antietam, or I'd like to see where Grant is buried, or that type of thing. It was within their general understanding. So when Jesus talked about it, he was pointing to something that everybody would understand, but the translators of the Bible thought, people aren't going to get this, so I better write in parentheses, let the reader understand. In other words, you're going to have to check out something outside the scriptures in order to understand what's being said here. Josephus wrote about it as well. If you have a Bible, death sentence. Has anything like that ever happened? I mean, have you seen the pictures of the Islamists cutting the heads off Christians simply because they're Christian. You see, this kind of evil was found in the Pharaoh, and it was found in the Babylonians, and it was found in the Persians, and it's found in the Greeks, and it's found in the Romans, and it's found in Hitler, and throughout history it's been found because there's evil in the world, and the world wants to take over and expunge the church from the earth. And that's what Revelation is trying to get at in chapter 13. Next slide, please. On the 25th day of the month, which coincidentally is, depending on the year, but the 25th day of the month of Chislev would be like the 25th day of December, coincidentally. That depends on how the Jewish year falls, but that's interesting to me. According to the decree, they put to death the women who had their children circumcised, not just them, but their families, and those who circumcised them, the mohels, and they hung the infants from their mothers' necks. Happy Hanukkah! The Jews know you don't understand the story when you say Happy Hanukkah. Does it surprise you, Keith? It's surprising. It's shocking. Next slide, please. Here is a coin with Antiochus Epiphanes on it. Hanukkah is a Jewish holiday that commemorates the Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire in the 2nd century BC, when the Maccabees successfully recovered Jerusalem and the Second Temple beginning on the 20th of Kislev, sometimes spelled with a C, on the Hebrew calendar, 164 BC. Hanukkah lasts for 8 nights and days. Each night is marked by the lighting of a Hanukkah menorah. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea means we're going to kill every Jew between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, and we're going to take it over. That's what that means. That's what they're saying. This is no different than Pharaoh or Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, or Ahasuerus, the king of Persia, or Antiochus IV Epiphanes of the Greek Empire, or Nero of the Roman Empire, which is where we're going next week. I don't have time to talk about that today. Can't get there. When you see the statue of Zeus in the temple, well, this presents some problems theologically, because the book of Revelation was written somewhere around the year 90, and the temple was destroyed in the year 70. So when this was written, there was no temple. And I don't think there has to be a temple, because the people of God are the temple. But on the other hand, some people would say with very good scriptural understanding that the temple has to be rebuilt. But if the temple is rebuilt, it is in itself an abomination, because if they reinstitute animal sacrifice, then they're completely denying the blood of Christ and the salvation that is in Jesus. So that in itself would be an abomination, if that is what happens. And I don't know. These are speculations I'm talking about right now. Let's look at the Apostle John's view of Antichrist. Now, you know the Apostle John is the author of the book of Revelation. And so when he speaks something in plain Greek, translated into plain English, this is what he says about Antichrist. Let's see, am I in the right place? One more, please. Who is the liar but the one who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist. The one who denies the Father and the Son. This is who Antichrist is. Antiochus IV, he's antichrist. He's anti-God. He's anti-God's plan. He's anti-God's kingdom. And so Jim asked me the other day, well, does this make Jewish people antichrist? It makes some Jewish people antichrist, and it makes other Jewish people to be among the remnant, which we talked about many weeks ago, the 144,000. How many of the Jews believe? They're accepting Jesus right and left, and have been for decades. And Paul says when they do accept, it will be at resurrection time. It'll be the Perusia. So, who is Antichrist? Those who deny Jesus as the Christ. Number 2, next slide. This is the last hour. You have heard that Antichrist is coming. So now many Antichrists have come. From this we know it's the last hour. Now, throughout the New Testament, from the time of Jesus' appearing and his resurrection, it is said to be the last days. God has spoken in many ways and in many passages, but in these last days he has spoken to us through his Son, it tells us in the book of Hebrews. So the last days are the amount of days between the ascension of Jesus into heaven and the return of Jesus from heaven. Ascended in on a cloud and returning back on a cloud. So not only the last days, but the last hours. Why? Because there have been many antichrists. Now, 1 John was written quite late, like the book of Revelation was written quite late as well. He was the last of the apostles alive. And he had already seen antichrists rise from the Roman Empire under which he lived, and some of them were burning Christians and feeding them to the lions and stuff like that. So there had already been a huge backlash against Christianity by the time John wrote this. And as you know, he was in the prison. He was on the prison island, working the mines as an old man because of his religion. Next slide. Every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have heard that it is coming. It's already here. This is how John understood it. You can take the beast in the blasphemous horn that rises up and all that, but underlying those things is this theology that he holds, that Antichrist is a world situation that hates God and hates Christians. And when the people go out and they preach the gospel to every creature, and then the end shall come, it tells us. So they had heard it, they knew he was coming, he's already here. Next. Chapter 1, verse 7. 2 John, chapter 1, verse 7. Many deceivers have gone out into the world. Those who do not confess that Jesus has come in the flesh, any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. Now, if you're going to talk to people, it'd be best not to mention this. But you should know it. They are expressing the opinion of a spirit from the chaos sea, the triple-headed monster that is against God. That's who Antichrist is. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a particular end-time Antichrist next week. But you have to understand that the end-time Antichrist is just a continuation of the chaos and the hatred in the spiritual realm towards the plan of God. So I'm going to just read through these quickly so that I can say that I at least covered the 13:11. I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb. He spoke like a dragon. Next slide. Keep these going as I read them. He exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. He makes the earth and those who dwell in it worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. He performs great signs, so even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which it was given to him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast, who should say has, you see the asterisk there, it means it should be in present tense, who has the wound of the sword, has come to life. And it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. And he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except those who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Actually, it says 600 threescore and 6. It doesn't put the digits out there. It spells it out. Score is 20, so 600 threescore and 6. And I'll explain that to you next week if you come. If you don't, it's your problem. Are there any questions? I knew I couldn't get it all in one. Jesus pointed to a historical fact to explain a future situation.
My question is, so that means Judas was an antichrist?
Yes, it does.
So I have a comment. So I heard a story about Penn, that somebody mailed him a Bible, and somebody was asking him, well, what do you think about this person? And he said, I think if you believe you have the answer to eternal life, to not tell them about it.
Yeah, I've seen it. He did say that. He doesn't believe it. He doesn't agree with it, but he understands why a Christian should explain the gospel to people, even to those who don't believe. Just one other little interesting thing. The Maccabee story is the main brother that was involved there. His name was Judas Maccabees. So in that story, he's the hero, and in the story of Jesus, he's the villain. No extra charge for that, but it is something I thought of as I was looking at this. Anyone else? Over here.
I think this illustrates how important it is on 2 points. One, we have to understand the history of the church, Judaism, Christianity, and what happened. And in order to understand what's going to happen, but also when you see Christians being killed for their faith and not reported, basically when you see the actions taken against the Christians nowadays not being reported and our rights being reduced around the world, I'm not talking just here, to practice our faith publicly, you really should be concerned about what's going on, or and aware of, as those are, when you see people get arrested for praying outside of a business in Western cultures, that's alarming, and it should be alarming to make you more aware of where we're at.
We live in a very blessed place where we have freedom. It's not true in the rest of the world. I mean, even in Canada, you know, they're wanting to arrest people who just simply say, I don't think that that kind of lifestyle is good. And they can arrest you because it's hate speech. But it's based on what the scriptures say.
And there was reports of people being arrested for just standing and praying with their heads bowed. They're not even saying anything to anybody, but they're standing on a corner praying, and they're being arrested for that.
Okay, we're going to take communion. Fortunately, there's not a lot of people here, so it won't take that much time today. If you can turn the thing off there, Tally, please. He doesn't want you saying anymore, Keith. Taking that mic right away from you. You're fine.